Imagine looking down the lens of a highly luminescent microscope at like a teeming drop of pond water, only to slowly realize you're actually looking at a satellite map of a dying galaxy.
Yeah, it is a massive cognitive whiplash.
It really is, because, when you first look at an image, your brain instinctively tries to categorize it.
Right.
Right? It reaches for a cognitive shortcut.
I was like, oh, this is a landscape, or
Right.
this is a portrait.
Exactly. Or, this is a cellular scan. But today's deep dive takes us into a single, mind-bending visual source where literally every single one of those cognitive shortcuts just completely fails.
They fall apart instantly.
Yeah, they do. We are looking at a really striking artwork by Anupam Gupta, who is also known as Machu, and the piece is titled Emerald Echoes of a Mossy Dream. And while our mission today is to visually decode this canvas for you, to explore how this piece acts as a micro-universe that forces the chaotic, wild realities of nature to just collide head-on with the cold, rigid precision of mathematics.
And that collision, I mean, that is exactly what makes this piece demand so much from you as a viewer. You really can't just passively observe it.
No, you definitely can't.
It operates as an entire ecosystem of symbols.
Oh.
To really grasp what Mushu has built here, we have to push past that initial, almost blinding blast of color. We have to excavate the underlying mechanics, the structures, the hidden codes, and the physical tension that is buried just beneath the surface of the paint.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because to even begin talking about those hidden codes, we have to immerse ourselves in the environment they are buried in.
Absolutely. The setting is everything.
Right. And the moment you look at this canvas, it is a deeply visceral, sensory overload. You feel like you've just stepped off a concrete sidewalk and fallen face first into a damp, overgrown, ancient forest ravine.
That's a great way to put it.
It's just the entire background, this massive organic macro view, is just overwhelmingly green. So let's start with this emerald expanse.
Yeah, it is an incredibly aggressive use of green. And it's important to understand how that texture is physically constructed to manipulate your perception. It is entirely composed of these deep, vibrant emerald and lime layers, but it's never just a flat wash of color.
No, it's super textured.
Exactly. The surface is heavily modeled. It's speckled. The artist uses this really intricate stippling effect, layering thousands of darker forest green dots over lighter, pale yellow washes, and even sneaking in these very faint, translucent glazes of icy blue.
Which creates this unbelievable optical illusion of profound depth. Like when I really zoom in on those blue and yellow glazes you mentioned, the canvas stops looking like a painted surface. It looks wet.
Yes, it looks saturated.
Right. Looks like it has a spongy, permeable membrane that is actively breathing. It genuinely reminds me of looking at a thriving petri dish, or staring at a weathered stone where you suddenly realize an entire microscopic society is thriving on the rock face.
And that feeling of dampness and biological activity,
Yeah.
it isn't accidental at all. It's a highly specific psychological trigger.
How so?
Well, green, particularly in these varied, earthy chartreuse tones, it actually bypasses our higher logical reasoning and taps straight into our evolutionary brain.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. We are hardwired to recognize these exact tones as indicators of life, of moisture, of environments where organic matter grows, consumes, and decays. It completely grounds you in a biological reality.
And it's not just the green doing that work, is it? Because scattered across the right side of this expanse are these strange reddish-brown clusters.
Right, the spore-like shapes.
Yeah. They are perfectly circular, almost like little stamps or like oxidized rust spots. But the way they are grouped feels incredibly specific. They aren't evenly spaced like wallpaper. They clump together densely in some areas and then just sort of trail off into nothingness.
Which is exactly the mechanic of fractal growth in the natural world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at how moss propagates or how mold spreads across a piece of bread, or even how a bacterial colony expands, it follows those exact clustering patterns.
So it's organized chaos?
Exactly. It's chaotic, but it has a strict biological logic to it. It establishes this foundation of untamed, sprawling wildness. And building that chaotic foundation is critical for the artist, because that feeling of being grounded in organic nature is exactly what makes the disruptions in the center of the piece so deeply unsettling.
Right, because once your eyes stop swimming in that endless sea of moss, you hit a visual wall. Like your attention gets violently yanked toward these two massive opposing focal points floating in the green.
The orb and the void.
Yes. On the top left, we have this blindingly luminous orb, and hovering near the center right is this absolute dark void. The contrast is just jarring.
It really is. The orb on the top left acts almost as a beacon. It's radiating this highly fluorescent yellowish-green light. But it's the way the light is depicted that really matters here.
You mean the rings?
Yes, you see these slightly erratic but very distinct concentric rings echoing outward from its center. Visually, it simulates the mechanics of emission. It feels like a tiny star, or perhaps a glowing, highly active cellular nucleus that is actively pushing heat, energy, and light outward into the damp moss around it.
And then your eye drops down to the void, which is the exact inverse. It has this deep, hollow, almost pitch black center. And it also has concentric rings of energy swirling around it, but the visual physics are entirely reversed.
We're pulling in.
Exactly. The energy isn't pushing out, the rings are tightening, pulling inward. It genuinely feels like a sinkhole in the middle of the canvas, just drawing all that lush green texture down into an abyss.
So we have absolute emission on one side and absolute absorption on the other. It establishes a really powerful gravitational tension across the entire canvas.
I feel that tension, definitely. But I'm struggling to orient myself in terms of scale. My brain keeps flipping back and forth, almost like an optical illusion.
How do you mean?
Well, are we looking at microscopic cellular biology here? Like, the orb is a single glowing nucleus, and the void is an empty vacuole inside a microorganism? Or are we looking at something impossibly huge? Is that orb a literal sun burning through a green nebula, and the void is a supermassive black hole consuming surrounding matter? Which extreme are we actually looking at?
What's fascinating here is that your confusion is exactly the mechanism the artist is exploiting. This is a masterclass in scale invariance.
Scale invariance.
Yeah, scale invariance is this incredible reality in physics and geometry where the structures of our universe look identical, regardless of whether you're zooming into the subatomic level or zooming out to the galactic level.
Oh, like fractals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about how the branching pattern of a tiny leaf's veins perfectly mimics the branching of a massive river delta from a satellite, which perfectly mimics the neural networks in your own brain.
Oh, wow. So by making the scale ambiguous, the painting applies to all of them simultaneously.
Precisely. The duality of the orb and the void isn't just a picture of a sun or a cell. It is the universal blueprint of life and decay. The orb is creation, light, the birthing of energy. The void is mystery, consumption, the inevitable decay of matter. You are watching the fundamental physics of the universe mapped out on a single patch of moss.
Okay, I track that completely. The cosmic drama of the light and the dark makes total sense within a natural framework. But that brings us to the element in this painting that completely short-circuits that natural framework.
The math.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting, because lurking in the shadows of this organic universe is a blatant mathematical intrusion.
The geometry, yeah.
Yeah.
It completely shatters the illusion of the untamed wild. If you force your eyes to trace the very top edge of the canvas, almost perfectly camouflaged by the dense green stippling, there's a string of faint, ghostly numbers and symbols.
They look like corrupted data, like a digital readout on a screen that is slowly losing its signal. And it's not just the subtle stuff either.
No, not at all.
Down at the bottom left, the artist's signature, M20, is scrawled in this incredibly sharp, aggressive neon red. But the real gut punch is on the bottom right. Sitting right on top of the moss is a vertical rectangular box, and it's outlined entirely by perfectly alternating red and yellow dashes.
That dashed rectangle is, without a doubt, the most disruptive psychological element on the canvas.
It feels violent to look at, because up until you notice that dashed line, everything, even the glowing orb and the black hole, operates by the rules of nature. But a dashed border. Nature does not draw a perfectly straight dashed line.
Right, there are no straight lines in nature.
Exactly. It reminds me of the selection tool on a computer, like when you click and drag your mouse to isolate a piece of an image, or like a surveyor's boundary map superimposed over a wild forest. It's a human construct screaming, "I have quantified this space."
The surveyor's map is a brilliant analogy, and it really gets to the heart of the visual friction here. Consider the color theory at play, too. The artist specifically chose a sharp synthetic red for that geometry against the earthy biological green.
Because they're opposites.
Right. Red and green are direct complementary colors. They sit on exact opposite sides of the color wheel. When you place them right next to each other, they physically fight for dominance in your optic nerve. They create a literal visual vibration.
So it actually tires your eye to look at them together.
Yes, it's jarring by design.
Yeah.
We are looking at the intense friction between human-made constructs, Mathematics, digital codes, rigid borders placed against the sprawling chaos of the natural world.
It's a clash of two worlds.
Exactly. And it begs the question, are we looking at humanity attempting to use data and geometry to box in, measure, and control the wild? Or is it the other way around? Because as you noted earlier, the digital numbers at the top are fading. They're ghost-like. Is the organic moss actually in the process of swallowing and erasing our rigid digital systems?
See, I lean toward the moss winning, because nature always wins the war of attrition. You leave a concrete city alone for 50 years, the roots break the pavement, and the vines pull the buildings back into the dirt.
That's very true.
So to me, that dashed red box looks like a cage trying to trap the organic elements, but the cage is rusting out.
It's a really compelling read. It certainly frames the relationship as a war, the fractal chaos of biology versus the linear rigidity of human data.
But I actually have to push back on my own theory here because there is one highly specific detail in this painting that completely ruins the war analogy for me.
Oh, which part?
There is an element that seems to act as a bizarre, delicate bridge between the math and the moss, and that is the flora.
Ah, yes. The stylized flower sitting just above the dashed geometric rectangle.
Yes, it's this small green floral shape. But I'm really struggling to reconcile this flower with the rest of the canvas. The moss is messy and hyper-textured, but this flower has distinct, perfectly separated petals.
It's very clean.
Very clean.
Yep.
And the outline of the flower is drawn in that exact same sharp synthetic red used for the dashed box and the M20 signature.
It is definitively biological. I mean, we recognize the shape of a flower instantly, but the execution of it is entirely different from the surrounding environment.
Exactly. It doesn't look like a real flower you'd stumble upon in a forest. It looks like an architectural blueprint of a flower. It's diagrammatic. So why take this one piece of biology and render it like a mathematical equation?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this specific floral element serves as the skeleton key for the entire painting.
How so?
We've been looking at this canvas as a conflict, right? Biology on one side, geometry on the other. But this flower proves that premise entirely false. It reminds us of a fundamental truth. Nature itself is inherently mathematical.
Wait, are you talking about the Fibonacci sequence?
I am. Think about how a flower actually grows. It doesn't just push petals out at random. To maximize sunlight and rain, without the petals blocking each other, nature uses strict mathematical ratios.
Right, so they don't overlap too much.
Exactly. The golden angle, which is roughly 137.5 degrees, dictates exactly where the next seed in a sunflower or the next petal on a rose will emerge. The spiral of a pine cone, the branching of trees, the geometry of a snowflake, these are deeply complex mathematical algorithms executing themselves in physical space.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the reason the flower has the same red outline as the dashed geometric box isn't because the box is trapping it. It's because they are made of the exact same material.
Yes. The painting constructs a micro-universe to show us that messy biology, the damp moss, the rust spores, the chaotic void and strict geometry,
Yeah,
the faded numbers, the straight dashed lines are not enemies at all.
they're the same thing.
You're simply two different dialects of the exact same language. The math is the invisible underlying blueprint, and the chaotic green moss is just how that math visually manifests when it blooms into the physical world. The artist uses that stylized flower to show us the exact point of translation, the moment the code becomes the petal.
That completely reorganizes how I'm processing this image. It's not a snapshot of a war, it's a translation matrix. The tension we felt wasn't conflict, it was the friction of energy-changing states.
It's a really beautiful way to look at it.
We have really traveled through a massive conceptual landscape with this single canvas today. I mean, we waded into that deeply sensory, stippled emerald moss. We got pulled by the cosmic gravity of the glowing orb in the black void, realizing they were the universal blueprints of life and decay.
Mm-hmm.
We collided with the jarring, visually vibrating red mathematics, and then finally found the synthesis of both worlds in the blueprint of a single, delicate flower.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about decoding the math hidden in a painting of moss?
It's a fair question.
Because this deep dive is ultimately a training ground for your own perception. It challenges you to look past the overwhelming surface noise of your everyday life. Tomorrow, look at your environment, whether you're walking past a manicured park, staring at the chaotic grid of a city skyline, or, even just looking at the messy folders scattered across your computer desktop. Try to spot the hidden structure.
The invisible geometry holding the chaos together.
Exactly. If you look closely enough, everything has a framework.
It is a profound shift in how we observe our surroundings. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly haunting thought to mull over, building on what we've discovered today.
Okay, I'm ready.
We've talked about the orb as the spark of creation and the void as the maw of decay. But what if the true driving energy of this micro-universe isn't found in either of those cosmic bodies?
What do you mean?
Look back at those ghostly, fading digital numbers at the very top of the canvas. We've assumed this is a painting about nature and human mathematics existing in a delicate, balanced translation. But what if we are actually looking at a landscape of the far, far future?
Oh, wow.
A post-human epoch where our grand civilization, our immense digital data, and our rigid geometries have finally been swallowed whole by the relentless algorithms of the natural world. What if the real story here is the silence of the moss, leaving only these faint emerald echoes of our technological existence behind?
Wow. That is going to stay with me for a long time. The next time you see a tiny patch of moss slowly cracking the sharp edge of a concrete sidewalk, you might just be looking at the very first brushstrokes of that emerald dream. Keep looking closer, everyone.